tonight. On First at 9 this Thursday, the 29th of January 2026. Reform debate. New education reforms take effect starting from the Grade 1 curriculum revision. Education unions and the opposition raise concern over delays in issuing teachers' guides. Digital safety. Sri Lanka eyes social media ban for children under the age of 12. Gold rally. Sri Lankan gold prices surged by over 15,000 rupees. Bailed. Catholic priest allegedly assaulted by police identifies suspected assailant. All 6 suspects released on bail.
Kalin baby so rupial 90කට. Kalin baby podi හැමෝටමයි.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, you're joining First at 9, brought to you by Sri Lanka's most trusted news source, Derana News Channel. I'm Tarindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. We begin with your top story this evening. Sri Lanka's new education reforms were officially implemented today, starting with the Grade 1 curriculum revision. Addressing the national commencement event, Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya stated that the government intends to create a student-centric education system comprising activity-based learning. However, education trade unions raise concern over the government's failure to issue teachers' guides in line with the curriculum revision. The enrollment of new Grade 1 students for the 2026 school year took place today. The national program marking the inauguration of Sri Lanka's new education reforms starting from the first grade was held at Gunasekara Vidyalaya in Aturugiriya under the patronage of Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya.
For many decades, we have been accustomed to an extremely competitive system of education that was highly competitive and prioritized to rote learning. We failed to prevent many students from dropping out of school due to this system. Instead of a teacher-centric approach, we are attempting to create a student-centric education system with opportunities for fun, activity-based learning. Although we were prepared to implement a curriculum revision for the 6th grade this year, it was postponed. However, we are working to include students entering the 6th grade in these new reforms. We will draft necessary plans. These students will not be left behind.
In this context, education unions commented on the newly implemented curriculum revision for the first grade.
42 QR codes have been introduced for first grade students for the first time alone. How will rural and economically disadvantaged children be provided with access to such facilities? There have been no clear decision on what these students are expected to achieve by grade 13. Even the Minister of Education is unaware of this. First grade teachers have only been trained for the first term. They are yet to even receive teachers' guides. They are only available online. This government is forcibly implementing education reforms planned and then abandoned by the previous government. This is merely to obtain the remaining $200 million from the Asian Development Bank. For the first time in Sri Lankan history, teachers are required to teach without proper teachers' guides. During the training in November, only a few sections of the teachers' guide were provided as PDFs, and that is all the material available at present. Although activity books for the first term of 2026 have been distributed to students, one book is missing. Children across Sri Lanka do not enjoy equal opportunities. Even the implementation of the first grade curriculum revision is faced with many challenges, including geographical limitations and a lack of physical resources. Nevertheless, we as trade unions support the government on the basis that reforms must begin from somewhere. We are pleased that this program is being implemented even amid challenges. There is a major crisis within these education reforms. During discussions with the President, we emphasized the need to provide technical equipment to classrooms. The Prime Minister stated that funds have been allocated for this purpose. However, as far as we know, such equipment is yet to be provided to schools. What we have long maintained is that students entering the first grade have become test subjects. Previously, every education reform was introduced through pilot projects. However, no pilot project has been conducted for these reforms.
ක්‍රියාත්මක කරේ නැහැ.
ඔබේ සම හඳුනාගෙන ඖෂධීය ශාකසාරමේ Forever face wash එකක් භාවිතා කරන්න.
Leader of the Sarvajana Balaya parliamentarian Dilith Jayavira calls on all opposition movements to unite in opposition of the government's new education reforms, which he claims is destroying Sri Lanka's free education. With that, here's a look at more political reactions regarding the education reforms.
The new school term commenced today. The school term commenced without teachers' guides for the first time in history under the deformed new education reforms. The teacher's guide has been shared to teachers' mobile phones as a PDF. Printing this PDF would cost at least 10,000 rupees. Why are they destroying the nation, free education and the future of our human capital under the guise of education reforms? This is how this puppet government functions. If there is an opposition out there who truly loves this country, set aside petty politics and unite. We must deliver a message that we are ready to defeat this government's wrongdoings. Let us organize a rally as a united opposition on the 1st of May. Sarvajana Balaya will commence discussions with all mainstream opposition forces and civil society organizations to reach a common acceptable plan. We urge all forces who move separately with regard to other matters to unite for this purpose.
මේ පොදු වැඩේදී එකතු වෙන්න කියන එක තමයි අපේ ආයාචනය.
දැන් පළවන ශ්‍රේණියේ මොඩියුල් වල තියෙනවා
Over 43 QR codes included in first grade modules. School children need special facilities such as smartphones and smart devices to access content through these codes. How many schools in this country have internet and computer facilities? It is the parents of these students who will have to bear this burden.
මේ බර දරන්න වෙන්නේ ඒ ළමයින්ගේ දෙමව්පියන්ට. අපි අධ්‍යාපන සංස්කෘතියට විරුද්ධ නැහැ.
We do not oppose education reforms. However, we must not forget that the purpose of education is to foster a knowledge-based society and a generation equipped with employable skills. There is also no need to disregard academic principles and reduce subject content. We observe that the introduction of these modules was rushed. There is a minimum number of hours required for training teachers. These reforms should be implemented systematically. Education must not be politicized.
ඒ වගේම මේ අධ්‍යාපනයට දේශපාලන දැමිය යුතු නැහැ.
NPP ආණ්ඩුව අවස්ථා කීපකදීම පැහැදිලි කර
On multiple occasions, the NPP government stated that these education reforms were formulated by their party. How can a political party formulate education reforms for an entire country? They can formulate reforms for their party, but education reforms should be consistent for the entire country. Such reforms cannot be formulated based on political ideologies. This was not presented to the Cabinet of Ministers nor the Parliament. We do not even know who formulated these reforms. There was an issue with the grade 6 module. The culprit is yet to be revealed. No one is held accountable. They cannot respond as the reforms were not implemented systematically.
අපිට අවලාද කරන අපහාස කරන අපිට අසාධාරණ ලෙස විවේචන කරන විවිධ පුද්ගලයන් පුද්ගල කණ්ඩායම් මොන විදිහට අපේ ගමනට කුමන අභියෝගයක් ආවත් අපි ඒ අභියෝග මැද මේ ඉටු කරමින් යන්නේ ජනතාවට පොරොන්දු වෙච්ච ඒ පොහොසත් රටක් ලස්සන ජීවිතයක් ගොඩනැගීම සඳහා වෙන අපේ සැලසුම.
Meanwhile, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa calls for a science, technology and innovation agency to be established in Sri Lanka. He made these remarks following a visit to Singapore's Science, Technology and Research Agency.
While on an official visit to Singapore, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa visited A-STAR, Singapore's Agency for Science, Technology and Research.
It is my hope that we establish a Sri Lanka Agency for Science, Technology and Innovation. The main area that we hope to focus on is agri-biotechnology and food security, climate resilience, post-harvest technology, cold chain, tropical health, biomedicine, advanced manufacturing for SMEs, electronics assembly sensor, artificial intelligence and digital public infrastructure, smart logistics, disaster prediction. We do have many agencies, but they're widely dispersed, highly decentralized, no integrated approach.
At a time when many countries around the world have introduced laws to ban or restrict social media use among children, the Sri Lankan government has turned its attention to limiting social media access for children under the age of 12. Minister of Women and Child Affairs Saroja Paul Raj stated that discussions have already begun in this regard.
Australia took steps last year to ban social media use for children under the age of 16. Denmark, Greece, Spain and Ireland are also considering similar bans. A draft bill to prohibit social media use by children under the age of 15 has now received approval from the lower house of the French Parliament. In this context, Sri Lanka's Minister of Women and Child Affairs, Saroj Polraj, reiterated that the government's focus is on restricting social media access for children under the age of 12. She noted that a proposal has been submitted calling for children under 12 to completely refrain from using mobile phones alongside efforts to ban their access to social media platforms. The minister further emphasized the need for such restrictions, citing an increase in immoral and harmful incidents linked to children's internet usage. Meanwhile, the National Child Protection Authority reported receiving 150 complaints related to cyberbullying against children, along with 20 complaints concerning attempted suicide. In this context, the government has decided to introduce a new law to address cybercrimes against children, which recently received cabinet approval. There are plans to introduce several new laws and amend several existing laws concerning the purview of the Ministry of Women and Child Affairs this year. Accordingly, there is a plan to introduce a new law addressing cybercrimes against children.
In further local news, Father Milan Fernando, the Catholic priest who was allegedly assaulted by police officers, has identified 3 of the 6 officers arrested over the incident. The suspected officers were produced for an identification parade at the Gampaha Magistrates Court today. Father Fernando maintains that only 1 officer was involved in the assault while the 2 others were present at the scene. However, the Gampaha Magistrate ordered all 6 suspects to be released on bail.
Father Milan Fernando, a Catholic priest from Kota Deniava, was admitted to the Negombo District Hospital last Saturday, alleging assault by a group of police officers. 6 officers attached to the Gampaha Divisional Criminal Investigation Unit were subsequently arrested in connection with the alleged assault. The 6 officers were remanded until today after being produced before the Gampaha Magistrates Court and were suspended from duty with immediate effect. Father Milan Fernando arrived at the Gampaha Magistrates Court today, where the 6 suspected police officers were produced for an identification parade. The priest had identified 3 of the 6 officers and claimed that only 1 had assaulted him, while the 2 others were present at the scene. When legal proceedings were recalled, the Gampaha magistrate ordered all 6 suspects to be released on sureties of 500,000 rupees each. Proceedings will be recalled on April 30th.
Although the father could not identify 3 of the suspects, police investigations have revealed that they were present at the scene in an official capacity. Therefore, the case can be sustained. These officers have been suspended from duty. How can that be without an investigation? How many other police officers are facing complaints? The same law should apply to all of them. The punishment must be decided by the court in the course of the trial. The suspension has left the officers and their families helpless. A special traffic plan will be implemented in view of the 78th National Independence Day celebration, which is scheduled to take place under the theme Rebuilding Sri Lanka. Defence Secretary Air Vice Marshal Sampath Tuyakonta stated that rehearsals for the Independence Day parade will take place on January 30th and 31st and February 1st and 2nd.
Everything is in place for the 78th Independence Day celebration on February 4th under the theme Rebuilding Sri Lanka. 234 Triforces officers and 3,323 other ranks will participate in the parade. Additionally, 12 officers of the National Cadet Corps and 479 cadets will join the parade. 12 Navy officers and 80 other ranks will perform the traditional gun salute at Goldface Green. The Air Force is prepared for the aerial display of the national flag during the Independence Day flypast using 3 Bell helicopters. Rehearsals will be conducted at Independence Square on January 30th, 31st, February 1st and February 2nd. In parallel, the police have plans in place to manage traffic, security and crowds during the exposition of Buddhist relics and the T20 cricket tournament.
මහජන පාලනය සඳහා අවශ්‍ය සැලසුම් ඉදිරිපත් කරගෙන තියෙනවා. 30 වෙනිදා 31
On January 30th, 31st and February 2nd, access to Independence Square via Independence Avenue and Independence Roundabout will be restricted. Entrance to the Sri Lanka Foundation Institute via Stanley Vijayasundar Mawatha will also be restricted. Entry from Torrington Junction through Bauddhaloka Mawatha towards Premakirti D. Alvis Mawatha will be restricted. Entry from Bauddhaloka Mawatha via RFP Junction towards Maitland Crescent Junction will be limited. Entry from Vidya Mawatha Junction through Vijayarama towards Vidya Mawatha will be restricted. Entry from Maitland Crescent Junction through RG Senanayaka Mawatha towards Independence Roundabout will be restricted. Entry from Independence Roundabout through Independence Avenue towards Maitland Crescent will be restricted. Entry from Maitland Crescent towards Horton Place will also be restricted. On February 4th, Independence Avenue, Premakirti D. Alvis Road, Maitland Crescent and Vidya Mawatha areas will be completely closed while other roads will be managed as needed.
With that, here's a look at more local news across the island in brief.
The Minister of Health has issued an official statement addressing public concerns following recent media reports on the Nipah virus. The statement confirms that several cases of the Nipah virus have been reported in West Bengal, India. However, the World Health Organization has not imposed or recommended any international travel restrictions in response to the situation. Accordingly, health authorities emphasize that the risk of transmission to Sri Lanka remains minimal. The statement further clarifies that, unlike influenza, the Nipah virus does not spread through the air and cannot be transmitted through casual or everyday interactions. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Plantations and Community Infrastructure announced that agreements to increase the daily wages of estate workers will be signed tomorrow with regional plantation companies. The decision follows proposals presented in the 2026 budget, under which the President approved an increase in the daily wage of estate workers to 1,750 rupees. Accordingly, the basic daily wage will be increased from 1,350 to 1,550 rupees, with an additional 200 rupees provided by the government as a daily attendance incentive. In other local news, the hunger strike unto death initiated by the Sri Lanka Schools Development Officers Association in front of the Presidential Secretariat, demanding their immediate absorption into the teaching service, continued for the fourth consecutive day today. Earlier this morning, protesters' health deteriorated significantly, leading to hospitalization. However, the remaining two protesters continue to engage in the hunger strike. Several opposition representatives arrived at the site to meet the protesters today.
Welcome back to First at 9. The International Monetary Fund's Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva is set to visit Sri Lanka next month to review the progress of the country's IMF program. This was confirmed by Director of the IMF's Asia and Pacific Department, Dr. Krishna Srinivasan, during a meeting with President Anura Dissanayake yesterday. An IMF team headed by Dr. Srinivasan, Mission Chief for Sri Lanka Evan Papageorgiou and Martha Verdemichael recently visited Sri Lanka to assess the impact of Cyclone Detwa. He emphasized that despite the disaster, the IMF remains fully supportive, and the Managing Director's upcoming visit will focus on program success and solidarity with the nation. The National Movement for Consumer Rights Protection warns of a possibility of substandard coconut oil entering the market as a result of a government decision to remove the special levy imposed on coconut oil from the 1st of April. Chairman of the movement, Ranjit Vitana, claimed that this move could also result in an increase in the prices of coconut oil.
As per proposals put forward under the 2026 budget, the special levy charged for coconut oil and palm oil is set to be removed. Accordingly, the two types of oil are set to be taxed under value-added tax and the Social Security Contribution Levy. This step is scheduled for implementation in April this year. However, the National Movement for Consumer Rights Protection claims this move will cause several issues within the coconut oil industry. Different types of taxes were imposed on coconut oil and palm oil on every occasion. However, this tax rate is expected to be brought to a common level from the 1st of April. What will happen then? Prices of palm oil and other types of oil would drop. As a result, scams of mixing other types of oil with coconut oil will commence. It is the exporters of coconut-related products who are depriving the people of this country of coconut oil. People will have to purchase coconut oil for a higher price after the 1st of April. Protect the people's right to consume coconut oil, at least by importing importing coconut oil. We would like to inform the government that a mistake has been made with regard to these taxes. Please take action to rectify this mistake.
The price of gold in Sri Lanka has continued to rise following trends in the international market. According to PETA Gold market sources, the price of a pound of 24-carat gold has increased by 15,000 rupees. Accordingly, the price of a 24-carat gold sovereign was recorded at 420,000 rupees, while a 22-carat gold sovereign is priced at 386,000 rupees. Meanwhile, gold prices also reached a record high in global markets. Foreign media reports indicate that the price of an ounce of gold has exceeded the $5,500 mark for the first time in history. Gold prices increased by 64% in 2025, and it is currently showing a 27% increase this year. In addition to gold, the price of silver in the world market is also reaching record highs, with the price of an ounce of silver recorded at $120 today. The Colombo Bourse closed in negative territory today as a result of price losses in counters such as Senkatagala Finance, Ceylon Tobacco Company and John Keel's Holdings. The benchmark ASPI lost 0.38% to close at 23,900.89, while the more liquid S&P Sri Lanka 20 decreased by 0.22% to end the day at 6,655.66. Market turnover was 6.9 billion rupees. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net sellers, offloading shares worth 76 million rupees. With that, here's a look at today's exchange rates. That's all for tonight from First at 9. Thank you for joining. Have a great night.